Now let me introduce you Kunal, and Kunal would be taking you a little bit detail on the procure to pay scenario. So this training, we are multiple people are involved, but these trainings would be Neha is involved for one of the session for the navigation workshop, but most of the content is covered by myself and Kunal. So I cover the sessions which happens on the Saturday morning. Kunal's cover the session which happens on the Sunday morning, right? So there are few things which I cover it, and there are few things which Kunal cover it. Okay, so Kunal is the one who is having a 7+ years of experience in as SAP MM. He has conducted 10 plus online with us. He is associated for a long time. And why we have selected Kunal, whenever we are selected, we want to make sure it should be a working consultant. So that based on their work experience, he should be able to let you know, he should be able to explain the things. But whenever I am selecting someone as a trainer, I am checking that he should be having a passion. He should be having a passion to give the trainings, to educate the people. Every experienced people cannot become a trainer, because to trainer is a specific skill set. You should understand how I should explain the concept so that it goes into the people's blood, right? And you should be having a passion to do that. So Kunal is a passionate trainer. He is passionate about sharing the knowledge, and that's why we have picked him. He is with us for more than 3 years now, or 4 years, and he is part of all of our SAP MM training so far, which we have done in last 3 years. He is part of the corporate trainings also. So with that brief introduction, I will hand it over to Kunal. Kunal, sorry, I have taken a little longer, but now we'll be jumping into more into procure to pay. You understand what path we are giving it to you. Now we'll jump into more into the procure to pay cycle, and Kunal will also take you into the system. How does the system looks like? Kunal, are you there? Can you raise hand if you are there so that we can give you the co-host access? Aman, can you check if Kunal is there? Kunal, I have given you the co-host access. Now you would be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Good morning, all. Good morning, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, loud and clear.
Yeah. So let me quickly share my screen. Good morning, everyone. So for next few minutes, we will understand the P2P cycle, the basic part of it, how it starts and how it ends, and we will get into the system and we will understand what things we need to do or what things business has to do to run this cycle. Okay. I hope you are all of you are able to see my screen. Okay. So as you can see, this is just a generic representation of how a P2P cycle runs. So it always starts with a purchase requisition. Purchase requisition is nothing but a requirement given by the people, like let's say production, maintenance, whoever it may be. They have some requirement and they need some product from outside. So that requirement is recorded in a purchase requisition. They create a purchase requisition and then they give it to the procurement department. Okay. So it starts with a purchase requisition. Next thing is request for quotation. Now let's suppose the material which was requested by the production department is not a usual procurement cycle, or which is not procured very usually. And that's where we have to identify who will be the suitable vendor for us. Okay. So in that case, what purchasing department will do, they will create a quotation, they will create a request for quotation, and then they will send it to the few of the suppliers which they have identified. And from that, they will expect the response from the suppliers with few details. For example, let's say the pricing part, right? And then we will enter those details in our SAP system. Let's say we receive those quotations from the suppliers. We will see what is in there, and then we will record that into our SAP system. We will punch it into our SAP system. That is nothing but our maintenance of the quotation. Once you maintain all the quotations from different vendors which you have received, then comes the analysis part. Then we will go into the system, we will check what are the different quotations we have received and how they get compared on the pricing. Then based on the suitable pricing, we will select one vendor, and that part is done in the analysis itself. Once you select one of the vendor, then for all other vendors, you will be rejecting it. So you have to put the rejection mark, and that way only one vendor gets carry forwarded to your P2P cycle and all other vendors get stopped there, right? Once one of the vendor is selected, then the next part is creating the purchase order, and all these things will be done by the purchasing department. Okay. So in the purchase order, the purchasing department, the purchasing group, whoever is person who's creating it, will refer to the purchase requisition and the quotation for the material and all other things, as well as the pricing part. And then they will create the purchase order. Once the purchase order is created, then it will be issued to your supplier, the supplier which you are selected. He will receive the purchase order, he will work on it, and then he will send the material. Once the material comes at your door, then the warehouse guy will do the goods receipt. Again, for him, the reference will be the purchase order. Okay. He will do the goods receipt, and along with the goods receipt, the vendor might send you the invoice as well. So it would be together with the material or separately, it depends, but he will send you the invoice. Then in the P2P cycle, we just have to do the invoice verification. Okay, not the invoice receipt, but the invoice verification, where we will just enter the things which vendor has maintained in his invoice, and we will try to compare whether the POGR cycle which we have done is comparing with is in line with the invoice which was provided by the supplier or not. Once it is in line and once it is within the tolerance limit, then the P2P cycle ends. Then the next or the final step is just the payment to the vendor, and that will be done by the FI department or the accounting department. Okay, so this is how a generic P2P cycle runs. And now we will get into the system and we will understand how it starts and how it ends. Before going and before trying to create the first part, which is purchase requisition, let us understand few things which we need as a basis or a prerequisite for this P2P cycle. So the yellow things which you see is called the master data, and the green thing is nothing but your org elements, the organization structure. Okay, these are the prerequisites I will need for running my P2P cycle. The master data is nothing but my material which I'm going to procure, and they say the list of vendors from which I'll be expecting the quotations. And then there is organization structure. Now, why these things are required? See, SAP is ERP, right? So ERP is nothing but, ERP system is nothing but running your business virtually. So whatever you do in reality, let's say receiving the goods, selling the goods, transferring the goods, making the profit, making loss. So whatever you are doing in the reality, you are just recording everything into the SAP system virtually. Now to virtually record all these transactions, you have to create your company virtually first. So there comes the organization structure, org elements we call it. So these org elements are nothing but you are building your company virtually in an SAP with all your purchasing organization, which is nothing but the purchasing department, which is responsible for the procurement. Then the purchasing group is a person or a group of people who are responsible for a particular P2P cycle. Then the company code or plant. So these are the things which are required to run the cycle. Now, whatever I'll be running the cycle, I'm running the cycle based on the things which we created in the previous batch. So for this batch, we will be creating it again, but currently I don't have it. So we will be using the things which we have used in the previous batch. Okay. So with this knowledge, now let's get into the system and let's run the cycle. Now, the first thing is purchase requisition, which is nothing but a requirement generated by the different people, let's say, from the company. The T code to create purchase requisition is ME51N. Okay. So this is how somewhat a purchase requisition screen will look like. Now here, as you can see, there are multiple fields and there are multiple things which needs input from us. Now we won't know, like at the initial phase, you might not know like which things are required and which things I need to put. So in that case, we don't have to worry. We just need to press enter button. Okay. So in this case, I know the material will be the first one. So I'll be just putting the material and I'll click enter on my keyboard. Now SAP system itself will guide you what are the next things which are required or which are mandatory to complete a purchase requisition or to create a purchase requisition document. Hence, we don't have to rely on ourselves. So just clicking on the enter button and system will tell you what are the next things which it requires input from us. So the next thing is quantity. So let's say I'm putting some random quantity, 10 pieces, and the plant. So for which plant we are procuring it, we need to provide it. So let's say it is SGC1 and the purchasing group. So purchasing group is nothing but a person or the group of people who are responsible for a certain set of materials. They are aligned in detail from end-to-end process for that particular set of materials, and they are responsible. They are nothing but the purchasing group, and they are the people or that is the person who will interact with the supplier for whole cycle. Okay, so we'll provide that one here. Okay, now even if I'm clicking again on the enter, system is not asking me any extra details, so that's fine. So with these 4 inputs, system is okay with me to create the purchase requisition. So let us go ahead, click on check. There are no errors, no warnings, so we are saving the purchase requisition. Requisition got saved. We will just open it in display mode to see. Okay, the same things which we inputted are available here. So this is the item overview, and the below part is the item details. Here you will find each tab a few more extra details of that material which you are procuring or which you have requested, right? Now the requisition is created. Now the procurement department has got this request. If they know the supplier very well, and if they have identified, and that's the only supplier which where they are going to procure from it, then what they'll do, they will directly convert this purchase requisition to a purchase order. It generally happens with the materials which are in procurement cycle since long time. But if the material is new, if the product is new, then in that case, procurement department might not be sure which supplier to select. In that case, in that situations, they initiate the quotation process. Okay. So what they will do, they will convert this requisition to a request for quotation first. They will convert this requisition to a RFQ. And then that RFQ is issued to a different suppliers. So first, let's create the RFQ. So I'll keep this window open. If you click on this button, new GUI window, so it will open the new window for us to run the transaction. So I'm going here. The T code for request for quotation or RFQ is ME41. Okay. Now here there are 2 ways to create the RFQ, either with the on-light agreement or with the purchase requisition. Right now we are focusing on the purchase requisition, so we'll take the reference of PR, right? It's a deadline, we are keeping it same today. we need to copy the purchase requisition number. So let's copy. And now let's take the reference of PR. Okay. So it is now showing me the item for which we need to create the RFQs. From where it is taking the details? It is taking the details from the PR. So let's add the slog, enter, click on the item and adopt. Enter again. Okay. So the item got adopted, right? Now what the purchasing department will do, they will issue this RFQs to multiple suppliers, right? Now to do that, we have to select the item and we have to adopt it to different suppliers. Right? What we need to do, click on the item and click on the supplier address. Here, provide your first supplier name. So I already have the supplier numbers here. I'll be using the same. Select the first supplier, enter. Now all these details which you can see on the screen, the details of the supplier, it is coming from where? It is coming from the master data. So since this supplier is already created in system with all the details, system is picking all the details from that master data, right? So this is the first supplier to which we are going to issue the RFQ. So I selected it and I click on the save. As soon as I save, as you can see, system has created a RFQ. It has created an RFQ and we will see in the display mode. But let's issue the second RFQ as well first. Let's say this is the second supplier which can provide us the material. So I'm issuing the second RFQ to this supplier. Select it, enter, adopt the details and issue. Okay, so we got two RFQs here now, 161 and 162. Let's open it. So see, 41 was creation and 43 is display and 42 is change mode. So generally this thing happens in all the transactions. So 41, 1 indicates the creation screen, 2 indicates the edit screen, and 3 indicates display screen. So now we are going to display the RFQ. 43, enter. Here you can see the same things which we saw in the previous screen, but just the addition is the supplier number. This RFQ has went to supplier to get the inputs from him, right? And now let's say, since it was issued for both of the suppliers, the quotation deadline date is 22. So today is 22 and we are getting the response from both of them with the details, with the pricing, what price they are going to charge for us. Now that price, now we have to maintain into the system so that later we can compare it and we can come to some conclusion. So to do that, the next T code is /ME 47. Okay. Here we need to provide the RFQ number. So this is for the second supplier. I'm going inside. Now this supplier has said that he can provide this material with $10 per piece price. So this is the rate at which he is going to provide us. Now let's maintain that and save it. And the first supplier said he can provide it at $12 per piece. Okay, let's save it. So we got the inputs from the different suppliers and we maintained those in the quotation. So we maintain in the maintain quotation screen ME47. Now we need to analyze it, right? So the analysis is done in ME49. Here we have to mention the quotation number and execute. Now system is showing you some analysis part of the quotations which you have requested. The first supplier, the second supplier, let's say in this situation, the V007 with 162 quotation number. He is providing us with $10 per piece, and hence the total value of your procurement will become $100. Whereas the second supplier, 161 quotation, is providing us with $12 per piece, and hence the total valuation or the total cost of the procurement will go $120. Hence system has suggested you to go ahead with the first one, and the signature is with the green background. The system is suggesting to adopt the first supplier, which is more efficient, more economical rather than the second one. So in that case, what you have to do then, you have to select the first supplier, this supplier, and you have to continue your cycle. But you have to convey something back to this supplier. You cannot keep him in the blank. You have to convey it back. You have to convey the rejection. So in that case, what you do, double click, it will open the quotation. You click on the rejection. And as soon as you save it, it will issue the message to your supplier that your quotation has got rejected. And the cycle ends here for the supplier. But the cycle still continues for the first supplier with the P2P, right? So for this, since this got accepted, we will not make changes in the quotation now. There is no there is no feature of going into the quotation and asking and saying them, okay, it got accepted, just like we did for the second one. The acceptance is nothing but issuing the purchase order itself. If you are issuing the purchase order itself, that means itself that you have accepted the quotation, right? So let's do that now. What I'll do, I'll select the quotation number and I'll go to the purchase order creation screen. So for the purchase order creation, the T code is ME21N. Here also same logic applies. ME21N is for creation, 22 is for edit, and 23 is for display. Now we are trying to create a new purchase order. This screen also looks similar to what we have seen in the purchase requisition, but it has got more details, right? Now, I have to adopt my quotation details directly to my purchase order. I don't want to put everything again. I just want to copy paste whatever details are there in my quotation to here so that I can simply create my purchase order. So for that, what I have to do, I have to create my purchase order with reference to my quotation, right? How I can do that? Click on the document overview and click on the request for quotations. Here, provide your quotation number. Other things we can delete. And system has suggested you the quotation, right? Now, to adopt this into my purchase order, there are multiple ways. Select it and click on adopt, one way to do it, or select and drag it to this carton and release. As soon as you release it, system will adopt the things. Or the third way is, there is one column here, RFQ and RFQ item number. You can simply mention it here and system will adopt it. Okay, so there are multiple ways to adopt the reference document for the purchase order. Now, as you can see, I'm clicking the overview off. Now, as you can see, most of the details got adopted from the quotation as well as purchase requisition since we have got the details, right? If I click on the check, system is saying there are no more things to be maintained because all of the things were there in the previous, which are mandatory for my purchase order, and all of them are present, right? Now, with this, I'll be issuing this purchase order to my supplier. Now, if I click on the print preview, we will just see the preview of that print. Okay. So this is just a template of SAP for your purchase orders. It changes according to the client you are working for. It gets customized, but this is just a template. Now here, as you can see, the things are already maintained, right? What is the purchase order header details? Then what are the item details? and along with that, some addresses. Now, if you see, though we maintained material, we maintained which purchasing group, all these things we maintained, but we did not mention these addresses and all. Nowhere we maintain this. But still it is getting populated on my purchase order printout. Why it is happening? It is happening because of the master data and the org elements which you created. When you created these things, you maintained all these details previously as a master data. And that's why as soon as you just maintain the code, let's say in this case, purchasing group, system will auto-populate all other things. Now, for example, think from the supplier point of view. Once you get this order, you might get few questions, right? You might get a few queries about this order. Then whom to contact? That details should be there on the purchase order. So this is the person of the contact. So this contact person group is nothing but the purchasing group and his details, how to contact him, telephone, email ID, fax. So those details, whatever details you maintain in the system, those details will populate here, right? Now in this case, we just maintained purchasing group on our purchase order screen, but all other things got copy pasted from the org elements from our configuration, right? Now this printout will go to your supplier. They will review it. If they have any queries, they will contact back. Once all the queries are resolved, they will issue it. They will supply you the material, right? Once you receive the material, now till now whatever has been done was done by the purchasing department. Now the receipt will be done generally by the warehouse people. Okay. Now let's say save it so that we can issue this purchase order to the supplier. Okay. So the purchase order got created. Now this purchase order will become the reference for your warehouse guy to do the goods receipt. To do the goods receipt, the T code is MIGO. Now this T code, it's not like the previous T code which we saw, ME21N, where we can just create the purchase order. It's specific for one purpose only. But this T code is not just for the goods receipt. Okay, MIGO is a vast T code which is used for all material movements. Whether you are receiving it, issuing it, selling it, or you are moving within the company, outside the company, whatever material movements you are doing in the company, all will be tracked against this T code, MIGO. And you can see what all things you can do, and you can see what reference you can get. Okay, so all these things are available here. Right now, what we are focusing on the goods receipt. We are receiving the goods against the purchase order. Hence, the action which we are doing is goods receipt. We are selecting it. And this action, whatever we are performing against which reference? So we are performing it against a purchase order reference. So we'll maintain that. And then we will mention the purchase order number. Enter. As soon as you enter, the warehouse guy will get all the details occupied from your purchase order. What is the material? How much is the quantity? And for which plant and which storage location it has to be stored. So these details have got copied it from the previous documents, right? Then there is one more thing, movement type. So what is this? As I said just now, this T code indicates all the goods movement. Okay. Then to indicate those movements, to understand which document belongs to which movement, we can refer to this field, which is nothing but the movement type. There are multiple movement types in the system, depending on the type of movement it is happening. Currently, what we are doing the goods receipt against the purchase order, right? And the T code, and the movement type for that is 101. So 101 indicates goods receipt against a purchase order. So just warehouse guy need to click on the item. Okay. So next details are the simple thing like your purchase order reference and the partner from which we are receiving the goods. With all these details in place, we will click on check. All the items are okay, and we will post it. Once you do this, as soon as you do this, there will be two implications at the backend in the SAP system. What are those two implications? Let us see. First, we will go to the display mode of the purchase order. We'll go to the item details and to the purchase order history. Now this tab, purchase order history, will not appear, was not appearing previously, but it is appearing now. The reason is there is a subsequent document posted against this purchase order. So with taking a purchase order reference, we created a material document in MiGo just now. What we did, we received the goods, and that created a material document. This is a subsequent document to the purchase order, hence it gets recorded under a purchase order history. So whatever subsequent actions you do on your purchase order, everything gets recorded under this tab and you can refer it in purchase order history. So this is the first implication. It occurred when we posted the material document. And the second one is we can see the stock now for this material. The T code is MMB to view the stock of the material. I'll provide the material number and execute directly. Okay. Now there is a lot of stock here because this material was used in the previous batch as well to run multiple cycles. So you can see there are multiple stocks here. Currently there are total 462 pieces in the system. But the 10 which we procured will be lying under ABB raw material storage location. So just to read how to read this, so you can see there are two plants currently on the screen. SGC1, SGC2. Under SGC1, we have two storage locations, ARAW, ABB raw material, and INWH, inbound warehouse. This will indicate how many quantities are present for that respective storage locations. The cumulative quantity, 432 plus 30, that is 462, is nothing but the total quantity lies in that plant, 462. Then again, this SGC1 is nothing but your company code. So this company code has two plants, SGC1 plant and SGC2 plant. For SGC1, there are 462 pieces, and for SGC2, there are no pieces currently. So that's why company code totally has 462 pieces. And throughout, if there are multiple company codes, multiple plants, all things will appear here, and system will tell you currently in your system, there are 462 pieces total under full row. Okay, so this is nothing but your unrestricted use stock, which you can readily use and which is available in your storage location. And then there is on order stock. So on order stock is nothing but the stock which you have ordered and for which the PO is still open. So there are around 12,000 pieces for which the PO has been created and it is still open, which is not yet processed. Okay, so these are the two main implications will happen at the back end once you create the material document. There are others as well from the accounting perspective, but we will not see it today. We'll be seeing it as we proceed further with our sessions. Okay. Now, till now we have reached to this level. We had created the requisition, we have understood the request, we run the supplier selection option through the quotations, we selected the supplier, then we issued the purchase order to the supplier. Supplier issued the material to us, he supplied the material, we received the material, and now we have the stock for that material. Now after this, supplier will provide us the invoice. He will provide the invoice either through the hard copy, soft copy, whatever it may be, but he will provide us the invoice. Now we just have to do the invoice verification. We don't have to create the invoice in the system, but we have to do the invoice verification. What is it? So based on the previous documents which we have, system will identify how much amount we have to pay to our supplier based on the purchase order goods receipt we have done. And we have to enter the details which supplier has provided in the system. And then system will do the verification, comparing the details which it has identified, comparing to the details which we entered based on the supplier input. And that part is done in the Miro side. So let's go into the system and let's go to the Miro. enter the company code for which we are running the cycle, STC1. Okay, so this is the Miro screen. So what we will do, we will have the hard copy, let's say, from the supplier, right? We will enter the invoice date from it. Then we will enter the invoice number. So he will have his personal invoice number on that invoice. So we'll enter that invoice number here. And then we will give the purchase order reference. So that purchase order reference will be there on the invoice itself. And we will enter. Now, as soon as enter, system will calculate how much is the balance for this cycle, which we need to pay to our supplier. In this case, it is $100. And whatever amount is there on the invoice, we need to mention it here. So this amount is nothing but the amount supplier is expecting, and this amount is nothing but the amount SAP has calculated based on the cycles we did. If it matches, then the balance will go 0 and we will be able to post it. If it doesn't match, let's say supplier is charging us 120. So we'll mention it 120 here. Then there is a balance of 20. Then we will be able to post it, but it will get blocked for the payment. If it is within the tolerance, we will see those things as well. There are tolerance limits, like if it is within the tolerance, then still we will be able to accept it and we will be able to process. If it is outside the tolerance, we won't be able to process it for the payment. Okay. Let's run the simple cycle here, understanding that the supplier invoice matches with the calculations the SAP has done. So in this case, we will just simulate. And we have to provide supplier with the $100. Go back and post it. Okay. So the Miro document got created. I'll again go back to the purchase order screen. /NME23N. Just a minute. Now what I did, I took the reference of purchase order and I did the invoice verification. So that is nothing but another subsequent document I created for my purchase order. And that will again get recording under the purchase order history. Right? Now, once we do the purchase, once we do the invoice verification, then from the MM perspective, the P2P cycle ends, but the main thing remains, which is payment run, where we have to do the actual payment to our supplier. But that will be done by the FI department or the accounting department, which comes under the FI consultant bucket. Okay, as we won't be considering it here, but it ends after the payment run does. Okay, so that's how the P2P cycle runs. Any doubt in understanding the today's P2P cycle which we have run?
Anyone has any question, quickly come up with your questions. If you don't have any questions, put NQ in the chat window, quickly, NQ in the chat window. If you don't have any question. If you have questions, please put up your question. There is one question on chat in Kunal.
Okay. So if supplier provides partial offer in the sense you are saying he will provide the materials partially, right? With multiple deliveries. That is the question. Okay, I consider that's the question. If that's okay, not full quantity, understood. So I'll go to SAP now. Okay. So let's say we are trying to procure 10 pieces. Okay. Supplier provides us 4 pieces, and then he says he won't be able to provide the remaining 6 pieces. In that case, we have to close it. We have to close it. We have to, obviously, we will be doing the payment for those 4 pieces. That's a different thing. But we have to close the PO because since you have received 4 pieces, 6 pieces will be still open. If I go to the header, okay. So this is the status of the purchase order. Here, what will happen? Ordered will be 10 pieces, delivered will be 4 pieces, and still to be delivered will be 6, and invoice will be 4 pieces. So that's how it will show. Since still to be delivered is not 0, system will consider this purchase order, system will keep this purchase order open. But in reality, what we have understood that your vendor will not be able to provide us, so we have to close it. So in that situations, what we need to do, we have to come to the item details and we have to mark this indicator. So currently this indicator got marked automatically because we received the whole quantity and the still to be delivered is 0. So based on that situation, system has automatically marked this indicator to indicate the PO got closed. But in our situations, we have to tell the system manually that though there are some items which are need to be still procured, but we are closing this PO. So in that situations, we have to enter this indicator and save it. And then the PO gets closed. Okay. There was one question which was asking what is P2P. So full form for P2P is procure to pay. So it's like whenever you procure something from outside, that's where we run this cycle, procure to pay. So what we do, we procure something where it starts with the requisition, requirement gathering, and it ends with payment to the vendor. So that's why it is called procure to pay. Okay.
Just to add in, the few people are putting the questions. Make sure when you are going to become a consultant, you need to understand how to ask the questions, right? So just take it on a lighter note. When you put something in caps, it means you are yelling, right? So you need to understand when you need to put the things into the caps and when you want to put things into the normal. So when you ask the questions in the chat, when you'll be working in the companies, in Zoom, in Teams, make sure you are putting the question in the right way. Some people have put the question in caps in different cultures. In the caps, when you put it, it means you are yelling, you are not asking. Okay, so make sure that you ask the questions in the right way. So Pingali is asking, now one thing, Pingali, you joined the yesterday session also, you are joining the today session also. Yesterday you was in SD session, I noticed the same thing. This is a demo sessions, right? You need to jump into the trainings to go into the detailed sessions. You want to need to know about the gate entry. This is not a 40 hours of training. This is just in 30 minutes. We try to showcase what things are happening, right? So if you want to go into the detailed training, you need to jump into the trainings and step by step we'll go into the process. Make a note of it. This is just a demo session. I noticed in yesterday's session also, because you joined yesterday session also, and the similar kind of question you ask in that session also in SAP SD session. First, you need to clear what do you want to learn. You want to learn SAP SD or SAP MM. Which consultant you want to become. That you need to decide, right? Jumping into every session and then asking about everything about the module, this process, that process, that process. It's just a demo session. We have a time limitations. We can explain the things within the limit. We'll try our best, whatever we can do it. But step by step, show me the, yesterday you say again, delivery process I showed you 3 times yesterday, right? It's just a demo session. Please first decide what you want to learn and then jump into that detailed training. Otherwise, you would be knocking your head into the multiple walls and going nowhere. So the company explained the indent wise. Can you go through the indent wise in SAP? You can go through the indent wise. Many times the purchase requisition, which is the indent in your business language, is called purchase requisition in SAP language. So in SAP language, the purchase requisition can be called as an indent. In some cases, business follow a physical document, which is indent, and that indent is later on converted into a purchase requisition. And in some business spaces, the indent which you have is converted into the purchase order. Okay. In our excellence chapter, there are some additional things which is newly introduced. That is in Fiori, where basically SAP has tried to give another way to create the indent specifically for the indirect procurements. But that will also lead up. The screen is different, little different. That is explained in SAP Excellence training. Okay, that is called self-service procurement. That SAP has tried to replace the indent part of the indirect material through the self-service procurement, and that is a part of the excellence training, not even as a part of the mastery training. But you need to understand many times the business language, what indent is, can be a purchase requisition in SAP. Pushpraj, please explain RFQ and the price compares to the both supplier again. So, do you want to have a quick answer to it? We cannot go through again the full process, but Kunal, if you want to quickly answer this one.
Yeah. So see, as we discussed, right, it starts always with requirement gathering. So in the requisition, we gathered the requirements. We will go to the quotation only when the purchasing department is not sure which supplier to select. They don't have clear picture of the market and they want to just grab it. They want to just understand how the market is working and what would be the price. So in that situation, they will go with the quotations. We'll create the request for quotation, and in that situation, we will issue it to the different suppliers. We are asking them to provide your quotations. But to ask them to provide your quotations, you have to provide them something. Like, see, this is the material, this is how it looks, these are the specifications of it, and we want it within this time. This is how we want it, this is the quantity we want, this is the location where we want it. So these are the things you need to provide them. With these details, then they will get back to you with the pricing part. So if you want this, we can provide this within this with your conditions, but this will be the price. In some situations, what they will say, okay, we can provide this, but not within this time frame, or okay. So those all things get recorded in the quotations. And when you get back, when you receive that quotations back from your suppliers, we have to maintain that here. Once you maintain it here, then obviously the final step is to do the analysis. So analysis is not just comparison of the pricing, but comparison of other factors as well, like your transport cost, then what is the time frame they are providing it, whether they are providing the whole quantity or not. So all those things. So there you will do the analysis. We just analyzed the pricing part in today's cycle. Once that analysis is done, we will select one supplier. So as we saw for other suppliers, we will reject it. And for that one supplier, we will go ahead with the purchase order.
So this quotation part we covered in the two parts, right? So we have a two training. So what Kunal has shown you into this is a part of the mastery. Then we have also one quotation process, which is a new quotation process through Fiori. That is part of the excellence. Okay, that is part of excellence. So, Aniket, you have a 6 month of experience. You can start your learning, but the learning curve also will take some time. You will do the mastery, you will do the excellence. By that time, you would come near to the 1.5 years of experience. You start your learning now, Aniket, but you do a switch when you have minimum 1 years of experience. Before 1 year of experience, don't switch from the end user to the consulting, or maybe 1.5 years. Okay. So make a note, Aniket, you can start your learning now, but when you're switching to a consultant, maybe you can do it when you have around 1.5 years of experience. By the time you can learn it and then switch it later to the consultant. Pingley is asking, explain the gate entry in SAP once RM entered into the plant. So for the gate entry part can be handled in a multiple ways. So sometimes for the gate entries in some companies, we have also created a custom transaction code because they have a specific requirement. That is the enhancement. That is a part of RISE-FW, which we'll learn in the SAP Job and Mastery course, which I have shown you, and which you will also learn and will be able to do it during the internship. You need to develop a functional specification for it. But there is another ways are also available. In one of the course we have explained the two-step, you can receive the movements, you can receive the material in the two steps. The first step of the movement you can do when it is entered from the gate, and second step of the movement you can do once you have received the warehouse. So with that two-step, you can break down for the gate entry. But many business has very specific requirement for the gate entries. They want to have to note it down specific things, and they don't want to do any movement in the system. In that case, we also go ahead and create a complete custom transactions for them as per their requirement for the gate entry. Kiran is asking, if there is a new vendor, how does the registration process work for receiving the quotations? Kiran, if it is a new vendor, you need to create a business partner. So we'll be having a detailed session on business partner, that how the business partner master data need to be created. So first you need to create them in the system with the transaction code BP. Then only you would be able to proceed ahead. However, there are some advanced tools. There is a separate training on Ariba. Ariba can help you to do the easy onboarding of your vendors. But Ariba is not there with each and every client, right? So everybody is not using Ariba. But if you have only SAP S/4HANA, the product which you're talking about, you need to go ahead with the BP transaction to onboard the vendors. Shamir is asking, what if I want to award only to vendor quoted for full scope? This P2P cycle explained in GUI. Let me try to answer first. What if I want to award only to vendor quoted for full scope? The question is not very clear to me, Shamir, but I understand you want to award the vendor who has quoted the full scope to you, who has quoted the full quantity. That you can do it with the vendor comparison. One vendor has given a quotation for 4, another vendor has given you the quotation for 10. So you can accept for the vendor who has given the full quotation 10, you can award to him. That is still possible. P2P cycle explained in GUI. So our training would be GUI or Fury. So Shamir, that we have two trainings. One is the mastery, second is the excellence. Before going to the excellence, you need to cover the mastery. In mastery, majority of the transaction which we'll be doing in GUI, right? Mastery, majority of the transaction we do in GUI, but we introduce you to the Fury also. So the navigation session which will be happening, we'll introduce, you can go into the Fury, you can log into the Fury, check the Fury. In the one of the recorded session, which is there into the mastery itself, there we have shown you how you can do an end-to-end cycle with the Fury. So that is a part. So that will be given to you, but majority of this session will happen in GUI. We have focused more into the Fury in the excellence. When you jump into the excellence bundle, we have created a specific training that is 8 to 10 hours of training that is called A to Z Fury for functional consultant. Any functional consultant, whatever the things you need to know about Fury, there is a separate 8 to 10 hours of training on that. Okay, you can subscribe that training separately to jump more detail into the Fury, or you can subscribe to Excellence so that you have that A to Z Fury for functional consultants. That's very good training. Anyone who has gone through it, they have really given a very good comments for it. That's a training by myself, A to Z Fury for functional consultant. Each individual consultant must go through it. But the thing is that if we are including the content, the mastery become very heavy. Mastery course will go to 80 to 90 hours if we include everything. That's why we have separated mastery and excellence, right? So that A to Z Fury and more part of the Fury would be there into the excellence, but the introduction of the Fury would be there. One video will assign you where you can go to end-to-end cycle in Fury, and during the navigations, we would also be covering that how you need to log into Fury. That would be the part of mastery. Molika has, I want to have a mastery plus excellence internship included. Can someone from your team help me for the enrollment in this? Support team, can you give a link to Molika, Bhupinder or Aman, whoever is there in the call? I think you missed commenting to the Molika. Aniket is having, I am fresher currently working in distribution sector also. Okay. Okay, I have replies. Yeah, so Shamira, you can look for Mastery Plus Excellence. The team is giving you the link. Aman, please give the link specific to Shamir and Aniket. No, not Aniket, Shamir to Malika, the internship link so that they can enroll for both. Pingley is asking, in our company, alternative week star, alt week star with SAP with purchase requisition ME51N. Okay, that's good. ME51N, if you are starting with, it means you're starting with the purchase requisition. So your indents, which you was talking about, is created in the system as a purchase requisition. What would be the length of the entire MM course? The length of the entire MM course and the sessions would be, we'll try to complete in 3 months. We'll have a session on Saturday, Sunday. Let me, Kunal, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. So Kunal, if you want, you can also feel free to drop. We have covered. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining. And now I think it's a generic question. I will take it up. If you feel to drop the session, you can drop it. Thank you very much for your involvement and going through the demo.